Well, the long holiday weekend is finally here. So many people have been sweating it out over the last week because it's been hot. They want to get out on the water. But we do want to make sure that you all stay safe, you stay with your family and your friends, and not get into any trouble. So we called on attorney extraordinaire Marcos Garza of the Garza Law Firm. We've seen your face everywhere. I've seen your name everywhere. Glad to finally meet you.
It's nice to spend some time with you too, Michelle. Thanks for having me on.
Yes. And as we are into this holiday weekend, we're talking about a lot of people want to celebrate. They want to have a good time to cut loose. They might have an extra day off, probably end up on the water to stay cool. It's been so hot. And we're hearing a lot about BUIs, DUIs. BUI, DUI, are they the same? Are they different? So let's just start talking about BUIs and being out there and boating. And at what point can someone, or like say the TWRA, because they're the ones that are out there on the water as officers, at what point can they pull you over or get on your boat?
That's a great question too, Michelle. And you know, what amazing weekend this is, right? The 250th anniversary of the United States. I just watched the soccer game last night where they prevailed against Bosnia. Anyway, I'm feeling very patriotic today. And it's such a great weekend to be out on the water, right? Particularly as hot as it is right now. And one thing about BUIs that is interesting is they kind of sneak up on folks, because I think a lot of folks, whenever they're out on in the law they call it a vessel, but out on a boat or a jet ski or whatever it might be, a lot of folks have a cold beverage other than a Coca-Cola, right? And that's just common. It is part of the culture for a lot of people. And boats don't move nearly as fast, or people don't perceive them to be quite as dangerous as cars, although I think we could probably debate that. But to answer your question, the TWRA, they can board your vessel for any reason at all, anytime they want. And so, I mean, they can just ask you to stop and check to see how many life jackets you have. And that's a completely valid legal stop. They're justified in doing that under the law. And so if you get pulled over and you're on a boat or a jet ski and they ask you these magic words, have you had anything to drink? And you respond, even in earnest, and say, I've had one White Claw or I've had one Michelob Ultra. Yeah. Chances are you're under the legal limit if you've only had one beverage. However, the filter through which your average TWRA officer views that one beverage is, oh, wait, I've got an admission of drinking. And the assumption that goes with it is the person talking to me may not be telling the truth. I think among TWRA officers and police officers, they will often...
If you had one, you probably had two.
That's right.
If you say you had two, you probably had four.
And if you read folks who are arrested for things like DUI or BUI, you will find that 85% of the time it seems like they say, oh, I had a couple or I had two. And so it becomes almost laughable among police officers, I think, because a couple really could mean half a dozen or a 12-pack, or it could mean a couple. So usually if you admit to drinking one or two, the officer is generally going to assume that you've had half a dozen, whether that's true or not. So
right. And so say you do get pulled over, they ask you if you've had anything to drink, and then they say, well, we're going to give you, do they give them like a field sobriety test like they do for when they pull you over by car?
So yes, they do. They have a battery of tests. And if you first of all, back to just to retrack what we're talking about, if you admit to having anything to drink, I would say the chances that they're going to ask you to do a series of boating under the influence type tests probably is somewhere in the neighborhood of 90%, 95%. And then the boating under the influence tests, Michelle, are really confusing. I mean, no matter what condition you are there, it's this kind of funny game of looks like almost patty cake, and you have to do it in an accelerated manner. And then there's another one where you actually have to do some sort of alternating fists.
Wow.
And then there's a finger to nose test. And then the other thing, all of these tests, keep in mind, are usually done on a vessel that is moving and swaying at the same time. So the chances of passing those tests or being perceived by a TWRA officer passing those tests, I think is slim to none. In fact, there was a study that was done, it's probably been more than a decade at this point, but they were trying to test the reliability of the boating under the influence battery of sobriety tests. And they determined that the reliability of those tests were somewhere around approximately 53% to 58%. And so the ability of those tests to determine whether you're impaired is really not much better than a coin flip. And so if I were to give anybody advice, I'd say, yes, is it legal to have a drink and operate a vessel? For most people, depending on your height and weight, 2 drinks is probably legal under the law. But once you admit to drinking, you're probably going to jail that evening, more often than not.
Yikes. So say the driver of a boat ends up getting arrested by TWRA being out on the water. So they take them away. Do they go to the nearest county jail? Is that how that happens?
Usually how that works.
Okay.
Yes.
And then what happens to the boat and the passengers? It's kind of like, hey, find somebody to drive the rest of you back, or
yes,
okay.
That's usually how it works. Once in a while, they'll tow someone. Usually they're looking for another person on that vessel who says, I haven't had anything to drink and I can drive this boat. That probably happens more often than anything. And if that person doesn't exist, often they're towed to the closest dock.
So hopefully by this time, people are listening to this and saying, okay, well, I'm not going to drink while I'm out there. I'm going to behave. But if it does happen, that it comes down to that and you are arrested and you get a BUI, how does that affect work? How does that affect your license to drive a vehicle? I guess there's so much that could be involved. I'm not even really sure of all the laws.
Yeah. So usually you'll end up spending that night in jail, and you'll have to post bond the next morning. But in terms of if you're convicted, which that's a big if, right? There's a lot of distance between you're charged with a boating under the influence charge and you're actually convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. However, if you are convicted of a BUI, first of all, if your blood alcohol or breath alcohol is
over the legal limit,
you're going to serve 48 hours in jail.
So you sober up? Is that basically it? Or?
Well, actually, interestingly, you usually bond out the next day, so you may be in jail 4, 8, 12 hours, something like that. If you're convicted later, they send you back to jail, 6 months later, let's say, give or take, and you'll serve the balance of that 48 hours. If your BAC or your blood alcohol is too elevated, they'll make you serve 7 days straight. The law does say you can serve up to 11 months and 29 days in jail, unless you've just got a history of committing tons of crime. You're not usually going to serve 11, 29. But this sort of 2 day to 7 days or more is realistic. The other thing is, and this is a recent change that the legislature has made, if you have a BUI conviction, a boating under the influence conviction, and you pick up let's say a DUI 9 years from now. You're out, at a Christmas party or something. You have one too many drinks. The interesting thing too, Michelle, is I think all of us sit here and say, I would never drive or boat over the influence. And I think everybody, when we are completely sober, agree with that and recognize the wisdom of that. We can all agree how dangerous being impaired behind a car is, something as dangerous as a car or a boat is. It's the problem happens is when somebody goes to a get-together and they get past that 1 or 2 drinks and they drink 3 or 4 drinks. And then there's these certain rationalizations that you find from the clients we've serviced over the years. After 3 or 4 drinks, we start playing these strange games of rationalizing, well, I don't live too far, or I feel fine, or it's been a few hours over the period that I've drank these drinks, or I weigh more than your average person, or something like that. Or if I leave my car here, it could get keyed or broken into, or all of these sorts of
I need
ideas.
it for tomorrow to get to work.
To get to work, or I'd be embarrassed if I had to take an Uber home. And so we start creating all these sorts of reasons that would have been silly reasons if we had had 1 drink or less or 2 drinks or less. But after 4 drinks, they start to seem more sensible. So no one sets out early in the night planning to drive drunk or boat drunk. So I think all of us, including myself, are very judgmental when someone, well, maybe varies too, but for the grace of God go I, right? And we're all capable of mistakes. But I think it's easier to be judgmental when you've had 0 drinks and you and I are sitting across from a desk chatting, and then in real life happens and someone makes a mistake, right? They make a very bad choice or a very bad judgment. And so I say all that to say, if you can set yourself up where you can't make the bad decision, whether it is a DUI or a BUI, that's the smartest way to do it. You know, make a plan right now that I'm either the designated boater who's operating the vessel, and I'm not going to have anything to drink until I'm done with all the jet skiing, body surfing, wakeboarding, whatever it is, and then I'm going to have a cocktail, be that person, and commit to it, or make sure somebody else is committed to that and don't waver. If you make that decision while you're sober, you're more likely to happen. What happens is everyone has 1 or 2, and then nobody really knows who's responsible until the TWRA officer boards your vessel, asks how many life preservers you have, or you don't have the little parking or the little light out, and it's past dusk. You know, it's during that sort of dusk time. A lot of times people will get pulled over. I see a lot of our clients were pulled over because the little light that you put on your boat right around dusk arguably wasn't put up soon enough. So anyway, I feel like I got a little bit far afield there, Michele, but part of it too is if I never had another client come in and hire us for a DUI or a BUI ever again, that would be a great problem. We could focus on car accidents and personal injury cases and Social Security. And there's a lot of areas of law we could practice other than this. And so that'd be a great problem to have. So one thing I'd like to just convey to you is when it comes to going to, you know, even a driving on the influence case type situation, if you take the Uber out while you're sober, you can't make the bad decision of driving the car back after you have 3 or 4 drinks, right?
What's $20, right?
That's
compared
right.
to what you'd spend on an attorney and fighting all this in courts.
Michele, let's do it. I don't know if this is
you gonna do some math for us?
Unorthodox, yeah. So let's say I'd say your average DUI first offense probably is somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $15,000.
And is that attorney's fees
That's
or
attorney's
is that court
fees,
costs?
And that doesn't count court costs, so that's probably another $2,000. So let's say it's $12,500, which might be after you're done with all the thing, and that doesn't even really count the fact that your insurance will go up, an extra 50% or maybe even double for the next 3 years if you got one. But let's just use a number like $12,500, which would be a modest, reasonable guesstimate. How much do you think it costs? What's the average Uber ride, do you think? Is it 10, 15, 20 bucks?
Usually around $20 to $30, I think, because I know when I go to downtown Knoxville, depending on what time, if it's a busier time, it's going to cost you a little bit more. So I would say the average is probably about $25, $30.
Okay. What do you think, Daniel? Daniel's in here helping us.
Yes.
You think that's good?
I have a lot of recent experience with this because I was car shopping very recently and letting my wife use my car to get to her job. So I was Ubering here to WBIR quite regularly. And between $15 and $25 during the morning rush.
Let's go 25 just to be, all right, so $25. So you can actually take 500 Uber rides.
Oh.
And this is we've used conservative numbers both from the cost of the DUI as well as we've made the Uber maybe a little on the expensive side, perhaps, depending on where you live. So 500 times you can take an Uber. Or you can hire a DUI attorney or a BUI attorney once and maybe have a decent chance of getting some mercy. But we know that using the Uber 500 times guarantees us that we don't get in trouble.
Yes, that is sure. For sure.
Anyway,
and that you're not out there endangering anyone else as well.
Well, that's right. And that doesn't take into account that, gosh, if you have anything to drink and you're, pulling a jet ski or a not a jet skier, a water skier, and somebody
Or
gets
some
hurt,
tubing.
or some tubing accident, and all of a sudden now there are a lot of circumstances where you're going to be charged with a felony reckless endangerment or what's called a felony aggravated assault. If take the same BUI as well as DUI, take that fact pattern and just throw in there's any kind of accident and anyone gets hurt in any significant way, broken nose, broken arm, broken leg, whatever it is, broken ankle, that situation doesn't turn into just a BUI or DUI. It now becomes a vehicular assault, which is a felony or an aggravated assault. Same with a boat. So,
And what does that mean?
that means you're looking at becoming a convicted felon for the rest of your life and going to prison potentially. And you might get probation, but once you're marred with a felony, that really makes it hard to provide for your family.
And that's
loved ones.
with somebody being injured, DUI, BUI. And I'd hate to say this or ever see this happen, but if there was a fatality involved, I'm sure that would be even worse.
Yes, then it's a vehicular homicide, which now you're looking at 8 to 12 years, served at 100% service rate. A BUI, there's not quite the same exact charge. It might be charged as a reckless homicide or something like that, which is also a felony that often accompanies a prison sentence. So, it's interesting how close we are to really throwing it all away whenever you are in a vessel, whether it be a boat or a vehicle or a car, and you're under the influence. I mean, because accidents happen all the time, and if you just happen to be have had something to drink at the same time, it can be catastrophic.
Yeah, I mean, all the money, lives lost, you could lose your job, spend jail time. I think we've talked about a bunch of different things. So any advice as people are out there celebrating this wonderful weekend of independence?
Yes, and we've covered some of it already, Michelle, but if I could stress anything, it is I wouldn't drink anything and operate a boat. That is not technically the law. Can you have a drink? Yes. But my advice is don't have anything until you're done surfing, skiing, wakeboarding, whatever it is. If you're the driver, just be completely a teetotaler the whole time, because then you avoid having to answer that one pivotal question when the officer boards your boat and he or she asks you, have you had anything to drink? Because the moment you say I've had even one, your chances of going to jail are, 75, 85% in my judgment, maybe even 90%. There's not a study on that, but just based upon 25 years of practicing law and handling thousands of DUIs and BUIs, that admission that I've had anything to drink usually means you're going to jail. And they may take your blood, and usually it takes about 10 weeks to get a blood test back through the forensic division, or TBI, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. But by the time 10 weeks comes back and you're vindicated, you may be suspended from your job, you may lose your job, you certainly spent at least one night in jail and were pulled out of having fun with your family and friends for something as wonderful as the 4th of July weekend. And so it just doesn't pay to get behind a vessel or a car with really anything to drink. And that's unfortunate. I realize a lot of people legally can have one glass of wine or one beer and certainly safely operate things. But as someone who has a career, like many of us, and even those who don't, or people who want careers or jobs or anything, it's just not worth it.
Does it stay on your record forever?
Yes. There are certain things, and Michelle, we could probably have a whole nother segment on this. There are certain things you can expunge off your record after 5 years, but our legislature has specifically said when it comes to things as serious as DUI and other similar charges, you can never expunge it. So you will always have that record. You can go 30 years and get in trouble the next time, and they will dig up that DUI you had 31 years ago, back on July 4th of 2026. So
Well,
yeah.
we want people to be safe, be smart out there, and if they
And wear your
do find
sunscreen.
and wear your sunscreen, of course, people do get into trouble. Marcos Garza, how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. You can go to our website, garzalaw.com, GARZALAW.com. Also, our local number is 865-540-8300. And yeah, we take calls pretty much around the clock all the time. So if you find yourself in trouble or harm's way or have a question or whatever, just reach out to us. And we pretty much return calls pretty much around the clock, 7 days a week. So.
Okay. A lot of information there to take in and think about. And as we mentioned, be safe, be smart, wear your sunblock. Those are all the S's. Right?
That's right.
And have your fun and stay with your family. And I just appreciate you taking some time and talking with us this morning, educating us on BUIs and just being smart out there.
Well, thank you, Michelle. I've enjoyed talking about this. It's important.
Marcos Garza with Garza Law Firm. Thank you very much and happy 4th.
Thank you. Happy 4th to you.